Hey guys, welcome to today's video podcast. And today we're going to be going over the pros and the cons and everything you guys are going to need to know about container homes. And there's no better person to ask than Eric Ballance. Eric Ballance is the president of Ballance Homes, and they are containers, and they are based out of Oakville. So Eric, how you doing? Thanks for joining us today.
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks, man. So just to get off, start off, tell us a little bit about, a little bit more about your company and sort of what you guys do.
Well, first and foremost, we build container homes. My family comes from a long line of traditional home builders, renovating homes, flips, building from ground up, wood construction, all of that fun stuff. We are also involved in the event space, building modular pop-up shops, trade show booths, anything that you'd see at a music festival or a mall kiosk or a trade show booth. And one of the mediums that we were building with was modified shipping containers. These things are robust. They're they're heavy, they're easy to move and transport, and they worked well for our outdoor clients. You know, you'd see at the C&E or that kind of thing. COVID obviously changed things for a lot of people, and the event industry really put out of commission overnight. We were traditionally building for 10,000 plus person events, and that was the last thing people wanted to do when COVID hit is put on these kind of events. So we ultimately had to pivot, and we decided to pivot into the residential container market, home builder. And it's something that I'd always been interested in, something that I'd always followed. But there was a little confusion or myths on how these things worked, and, pros and cons and websites. And, we really spent 6 months trying to figure out how to build these things. We did it. We figured out how to build these things for Canadian Marketplace, the Ontario Building Code, and now we're building, forward-thinking modern homes and cottages out of containers or prefabs. Yeah.
Okay. So did you want to tell us sort of more about what what a container home is, I guess?
Yep.
Or...
Yep. So simply, we modify real CCAN shipping containers. Typically, we are using what are called one-trip high cube containers. These are containers that have brought cargo over into Canada typically from Asia one time. They may have brought over diapers for Walmart or what have you. They're high cubes. They're a foot taller than normal. They're 9'6", which leaves nice high ceilings inside. They act as modern residential homes. We can use individual containers for smaller applications, or we can link multiple containers together by removing internal walls and then reframing the internal guts on these things. We like to consider these things adult-sized Lego. They're plug and play, and you let your imagination run wild on what you can build. We finish them like any traditional home. The insides are finished with all the same mechanicals, spray foam insulated, same drywall, same windows and doors, and everything you'd see in a traditional residential home.
Yeah, I could definitely see the potential in the different design. It's sort of like you said, the Lego. You can just design the building how you want. Now, so what are some of the benefits of buying a container home?
So what we're talking about is modular construction here, and this is a new form of building, a little unconventional for the typical building codes because it's factory built. We are building our container homes in our factory in Oakville. It allows us to speed up process. The main benefit here in any type of modular construction, whether it be wood framed or container built, is the efficiencies in the shop. We can build full-blown home in 2 to 4 months for most of our projects, compared to 12 months plus in today's world, especially with labor issues and supply chain issues and things that are going on as a result of COVID. It allows our clients to get these things built quicker, which helps with financing these things, the cost to carry and build a home with a construction loan or whatever finances you're using. The next is the fabrication efficiencies. We're building these things up to 95% in our controlled environment. There's just less waste. There's less costs related to waste for on-site, on-site spoilage. With building, you've got rain delays, you've got theft and spoilage, you've got little things. I mean, trades take half an hour to set up every single day on a job site. I'm in, they work their square 7:30 to 3:30 shift. The tools are all in place. All the bill of materials is ready to go. So, we have efficiencies definitely building in a factory environment. Not to mention, when we're building standard modules, we have standard, pre-built wall frames and things that are built during our slower cycles so that we can have inventory of parts to make these things put together quickly. Strength. So containers at the end of the day are just structural beasts. These are steel boxes. They were originally designed and built, obviously, for cargo. As I always say, they can literally carry anything anywhere in the world. They're designed for structural strength. They surpass building codes. So when we talk about building with a container, really all we're doing is saying, hey, a traditional house is built with wood framing from the ground up. In a factory, we are modifying a shipping container. It serves as the structural entity of the home. Structurally, we have engineers that sign off on these things. They're above the building codes. Then we finish them like any other home. They're rugged enough for harsh climates. I mean, we're in talks with governments and builders in the Caribbean, in hurricane zones, in seismic zones. These things are meant to resist harsh climates. Also, because they're structural, architects like to use them for their cantilever abilities and stacking abilities. You can build apartments out of them. I mean, we're constantly asked if these things can handle snow loads. Well, I mean, these things are helicoptered into avalanche zones as rescue centers. They're stacked 7 high on cargo freight. So, building residential these things is no problem. Any questions there? Yep.
No, I just say I see the green benefits down there, and I think it's really cool that these things do get shipped across the ocean, like out in the open, facing the elements. So they are built to last, right? So what are now there's been some recent articles out in the newspapers and out in the news talking about using container homes in order to solve the affordable housing issue or to be able to build homes quicker. Can you speak more on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, container homes originally started, 10 plus years ago of the world. These things were being pulled out of land sites at the end of their life cycle and being used as simple sort of shanties, simple structures in warmer climates. Trend has been growing around the world. And, I look at things like the tiny home movement. People are looking for alternative housing methods, and container homes fits into that. We can small scale tiny home, but if you're like me, I've got 2 young boys. I can't live in a tiny little box. So the idea here is that you can join multiple boxes together and build your dream house as you want. They're ideal as simple structures, as that kind of thing. But we've now developed them for the Canadian landscape. So as I say, they meet Ontario building codes, Canadian building codes. They're ideal as accessory dwelling units to create affordable housing options.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, there's a lot of projects going around and a lot of information going around about these type of homes. And again, thanks for clearing some of these things up. Now, what are some of the things that buyers are going to need to consider when having a container home built on their property?
Well, like any type of construction, you need to ensure your zoning makes sense. We have constant calls from people either looking to purchase land or they own land and they have their big dream of what they'd like to put on this. They'd like to either a home for their family at a certain size, or they want to create Airbnb rentals on it, or whatever it may be. And zoning is really the important part here. We need to remember that your property lives within zoning rules, and without challenging those zoning rules, or having it rezoned, or going for a variance and getting into the red tape with the township to do that, you need to understand what you first are allowed to do on your piece. So one of the services that we provide, we have an architect that will do a zoning review. It just helps you understand what you can do. Once you find out what you're allowed to do, we work with our clients and come up with a solution that meets the criteria of what they're after, but fits within those zoning rules.
Yeah. Have you been finding a lot of pushback from local municipalities on container homes, or have they been more open to allowing you guys?
Again, I'd say that right now we're in the education phase of what we're doing here. We've heard from people that their township doesn't allow these things. The simple fact is they do meet building codes, structurally, all the other requirements. So really it just becomes an education piece to the township, so they understand what these things are and how they work. Most of the kickback that we have had from some select townships is more related to the aesthetics of what these things are. There's a misconception that we're building these rusted out, wrecked containers because people use them as storage containers. They throw them in the woods. They sit there for 20 years. They've got the original, logistic company's logo on it. They're dented. They're at the end of the life cycle of that container. What we're doing is completely different. We're building new containers. They're high cubes. They're clean, ready to go. So we want to be in that education phase. We want to be teaching people how these work, the consumer as well as townships. And there's 400 plus municipal townships in Ontario. We have called on all of them and have classified whether they are red, where there's just a no-go zone, yellow, where they don't know enough about it. They may not have into it. They see it as a viable building solution. They may have built something already that is a precedent. The townships that are in the red, though, we welcome those meetings to go through this and really understand what we're talking about and how this can be a great solution to the housing crisis that's out there.
Yeah, of course. Now, like, one of the questions, or one of the things that I've sort of heard a lot about, you kind of touched on back there, is that there's no way that container homes could be as energy efficient as a regular home. Now, right. So I know you touched on it briefly, but sort of catch us up on how it can meet today's building codes and like you said before, exceed them in some certain ways.
Right. Well, again, for people that don't understand how this building method works, it's just simply not true that these things are not as efficient as a traditional home. When you look at what the mechanics are, we're talking about a corten steel shell that's extremely robust. We then spray foam insulate the we do is an inject of spray as a vapor sort of barrier on the entire insides. Then we frame our walls, run our mechanicals, and then you have your drywall under finishes. You just simply cannot get drafts and bugs and things through a steel spray foam. They're so well insulated that the heating and cooling, it's natural that these things are efficient. We built projects, we follow the code, and we find that we don't need as many heaters in these things as maybe the code suggests. They heat and cool beautifully.
Oh, very nice. So what would a typical cost?
Yeah, sorry. One other thing too is, because we try to simplify the build process to be factory built and eliminate most of the on-site work, we tend to use things like ductless air conditioning or ductless heat. These things are extremely efficient, and they allow the homeowners to just heat and cool the rooms that they need, as opposed to a forced air system that may heat and cool the whole house.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. So, well, like now, another concern with people is like, so how much are these things going to cost? Now, do you know what the typical cost on a standard, say like 1,500 square foot container home would be?
Yeah, so I mean, because we offer standard kits and we can custom design, we have to have a barometer to allow our clients to understand budgeting and how these things. Our typical homes, the formula we use, we start at around $300 a square foot for our bungalows, $325 a square foot for 2-story or multi-floor units. This is with our baseline finishes. We can keep it simple. These things can have the exterior painted, the insides drywall with vinyl click, IKEA grade kitchens and washrooms. We're just starting around $300 a square foot, and they go up, and our clients can upgrade as they choose. So we build in modules. A 40-foot container is 320 square foot. So we use those increments. So when we want to build out a larger home, we will link multiples together. So for interest, when we start talking about 4 containers, we're at 80 square foot, at about 385,000 at $300. A 1,600 square foot home, you're at about 480,000. But from there, our clients typically decide what's left in the budget to upgrade the kitchen, upgrade the flooring, whatever their the features they're zeroing in on.
Yeah. Now, how are these homes typically financed now? And like, because on typical banks probably might not finance them in a traditional way. So, what are ways that you're finding that people are financing these container homes?
Yeah, well, just like the building codes are learning and being educated and learning about this process, so are the banks. Traditional financial institutions, there's a little bit of ways to come before these things are fully adopted as a normal build. Because they are factory built, because they're modular construction banks tend to see these things like, say, a mobile home, that they are movable and don't want to secure a traditional mortgage until it lands on the property. Once the building lands and is secured to the foundation, any traditional financing can be put on these things. So the challenge at this point for us is just, how does our typical client finance these things during the construction phase? If you were building a new home, you would get a construction loan from your bank. At this point, we have finance partners that will do that finance for the construction phase. We're talking 3 to 6 months of carrying the debt load on the construction before they then convert to a regular mortgage. Some of our clients are using home equity lines of credits and things, of pulling some of the value out of their main dwelling to add, say, an accessory dwelling on it. But we're excited to keep onboarding new finance partners, and someday speaking to every financial institution about financing these as any home would be.
Yeah. So I just got a question here from someone who's watching live. It says, might have missed it, but what's the life cycle of these? How old can a container be to used as a home? And are some containers not available to be used because they are too old? So what is the life cycle really? What that is the main question of these
Main
homes.
question. Yeah. Well, thanks for the question. And it's something we get often. The simple truth is, containers, the same design of a container has been around since 1955. No one will have empirical data on how long these things will last as a home. But I take solace in the fact that, the way they're built, these things, there's no reason they don't last forever. I mean, We offer very strong warranties on the structural elements. I don't lose any sleep knowing that these things are going to last. They're extremely robust. We are not using typically used containers though. So you're not. I want to clear up a misconception that everyone thinks that you're saving the environment because you're using upcycling containers. Not sure about you, but I really want to build a home for my family with something that's used. It could leak. These things are meant for cargo. So if a forklift had damaged or punctured the wall, you've now lost your water seal, that factory that built the container. So we traditionally are using new one-trip containers, no dents, nothing on these to be concerned about. So there's no reason the life cycle of these things wouldn't be the same or better than any traditional home.
Of course. Now we just got another question from Joshua Wall. It says that the price per square foot is just for the modular homes. A purchaser still has to buy the land and build the foundation. So what kind of foundation do these homes need? Is it typical? It's just a flat concrete foundation, or how does that work?
Yep. Well, thanks, Joshua. So yes, I mean the prices I'm quoting are for the building itself, the building of your home plus delivery fees from our facility in Oakville to your land. It also doesn't include the site prep work. So there will have to be local trades used to create the simple foundations, the electrical and water and sanitation connections. All of those will be provided in our drawings. But these things just need very simple foundations. We typically are using sonotube or helical piers just to pick up the corners. You don't need a full foundation pad. You don't need a basement foundation unless you want a basement. These things can go on traditional foundation if needed, but most of our clients are adopting to save money and just go with very simple sonotube piers. Ideally, these things are 6 to 12 inches off the ground. It allows all the air and water to pass beneath it.
Okay. So are you seeing in certain areas, like I know we had talked about the municipalities, some like it, some don't. Are you seeing more interest like in certain areas in Ontario as opposed to other areas, or is it just what areas is this catching on more?
We started this thing during COVID. Our first product was the backyard office, trying to create a product that people could use to escape, lockdown and having their own space. We were giving it to cities, but we found that out of the gates, these things were selling very well in cottage country. They were being used as bunkies and sleeping cabins, and then people from their cottage and working from home, and it allowed people to create a multifunctional space. Now we're starting to see these requests pop up everywhere. As it normalizes as a building type, we are starting to see it in all major cities. We're getting requests from coast to coast into the States. We've actually got a project going down to Florida currently being built. And then garden suites is the next part. These accessory dwelling units, multiple townships across Ontario have allowed them. And so it's endless where these things can end up.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the main difference between a traditionally built, wood framed house and a container home would be?
Quite simply, just modular construction. At the end of the day, noting that containers have to be the be all end all of every building type, but modular construction is going to change the building landscape. Being able to output homes faster in a factory setting is far more efficient than building on site. And the way we look at it is in traditional construction, you have your permit issued. then you start your foundation, then you build from ground up, and all the steps and delays that come with that, and project management of trades and all of that. In our world, the permit is issued. The site prep crew will start the foundation and the site work at the exact same time that we start our fabrication of our building. They run concurrently. So we're already ahead of the game, right? And so I look at modular construction as a way that's going to get adopted, normalized, as people seeing it as a viable solution.
Of course, yeah, because then you could both work at the same time, and you're not having to sort of coordinate everything all at once, but you guys sort of build everything there and then transport it over into the
site,
over to the site. So again, you got the travel time.
Honestly, well, that's right, and we're also seeing it. These things being are bought up by traditional builders. We're having builders that, picture a cold February day. They're outside starting to frame a home. We can send them the shell that's already been modified, and day one they're starting working indoors, and then they can finish it the way they want, and rough ends forward. Lots of options.
Yeah, very nice. And I just to to tap it off, I know you talked about ADUs, so let's touch more on that and figure what your thoughts are. Explain what ADU is, because it is an acronym.
Well, it is an ADU. Yeah.
Yeah. What is an ADU?
Yeah. So quite simply, it's an accessory dwelling unit. It's a secondary residential unit that you're legally allowed to have on your property. These things started, I guess the first phase for Ontario was seeing the laneway homes in downtown Toronto being adopted in 2018. This allowed people to, take down the existing old garage, put up a new garage with a living quarter above it. The next phase is that they're starting to allow garden suites, and all that means is that you have a grass backyard, and that if your backyard has fire access and all of the important safety measures in place, you are allowed to have a small secondary dwelling in your backyard. These units traditionally are tied into the main house. All of the services, electrical, everything will be tied in. The point is that they cannot be severable. You cannot sell your backyard or the second dwelling. This is tied to the main residence, and the second dwelling now is showing as, traditionally more for multifamily living. You may have the children that are priced out of the market. Well, all of a sudden they can have their little 1 or 2 bedroom home in their parents' backyard. Or quite opposite, the parents are aging. We found during COVID that people were telling us they don't ever want to put their parents in an old age home after what happened during COVID. And now they can take care of their parents, 50 feet from their back door. And it's important for people to have their own space and their own privacy. I don't know about you, but like living with my parents would not be something that I'd dream of, but having them close and knowing they have their own space, they can come and go, and it's affordable, it is ideal. It's also going to allow people to generate income. They can rent these apartments out in their backyard. And so we're really looking 2023 being one of the sort of leaders in the Garden Suite initiative, that we can create affordable 1 and 2 bedroom apartments that are built quickly because they're modular construction. We're factory building them and then craning them into into position. We're not dealing with the on-site noise and all the disturbances that happens with our traditional.
Yeah, that's where I see the biggest potential sort of for all of this, is sort of creating, additional housing units. And as we were just chatting before, is that, there's no way that even with the shortage of construction workers, that we're going to meet these housing deadlines or create these affordable units. And, modular homes and container homes are a definite way to, make it a lot easier and make them a lot faster. And I think there's a huge market and potential for this kind of home in the future. And, once cities, as you mentioned, it's the education, once they get familiar and comfortable, and they find out how they can fit these homes into their communities, I think it's just going to skyrocket. And I think you guys are doing some amazing work. The container homes and garages and everything you're building that I've seen are absolutely beautiful. Do you want to let people know how to get in touch with you, some of your socials and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. Just quickly to wrap up on the stuff too, I also wanted to mention, so everyone is aware, I mean, there is a provincial mandate that every municipality, specifically to Ontario, has a garden suite policy in place by the end of 2023. They're going to be allowed to create their own bylaws and all of those zoning issues or topics that come up. But the point is that the government is seeing this as a way to create affordable housing and address the housing crisis that's out there. So currently there's probably 10 townships that approve them, but every day these things are coming on board. For people to get in touch with us. Sorry?
Yeah, so we just got another question. How are these anchored down? Are they installed to the ground to withstand the weathers and storms? Like, say you're moving, you got that place down in Florida you're working on. How are you guys weatherproofing it for natural disasters, that kind of thing?
Right. So the weight, first of all, the weight of a container, these things aren't moving regardless. I mean, you're talking about basically 50% heavier than a wood framed home. But because they're on piers, all we simply do is drill in a flat steel pier plate that goes into the top of the pier. Container lands, it's then tack welded to that pier. The reason for that, I mean, if you had a car that drove into the front of it, it would stop it from shifting, but no wind weather element is going to move these things. And the Corten steel shell on these things is going to withstand extreme weather. When we talk about actual extreme weather, we're talking about hurricanes and things. Developing these so that the Corten steel that we cut out for the windows and doors, we repurpose as shutters that actually go over top of the windows and doors. And so when a hurricane's coming, you literally the hatches on these things.
Yeah, you literally bunker down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. And again, just let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, how they can follow you. Like I said, I recommend you guys go check out their website and their Instagram, everything, and check out the amazing things that they're doing. But just let people know how they can get over.
Yep, please check out our website, balancecontainers.com. There's 2 L's in balance. I was born that way with 2 L's. Balancecontainers.com. Check out our site. We've got 50 plus designs on there. We also custom fill out an info request form. It'll tell us a little bit about your project. We'll send you a marketing package, set up a kickoff call. Those that want to come to our Oakville facility and see examples, we've got 1 and 2 bedroom units at our facility. You can also go at Ballance Containers on Instagram. You're going to see examples of projects that we've recently built out there.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for clearing some things up. I know I definitely learned more than a few things today, but again, thank you for joining us. And if we have any questions further on, we'll definitely be reaching back out to you.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys. Bye.